Michael, come on up.
Well, that brings back quite a lot of memory. Thank you, John. Also, thank you for all those awesome articles you wrote in the Bee back in the day. those were really fun. Yeah, this is a very special moment and emotional. And Harold, thank you so much. Your words mostly resonated with me, and the fact that running is quite a culture. In a different way, I was late to that culture because my family, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and I have my sister Rebecca and her husband Eric here, and 2 of their awesome kids, Isabel and Christian, my goddaughter Isabel, who's just a great gal, and Christian is excited to maybe get into Jesuit and go on and do some things as well. And of course my mother, Mary, who I owe my life to. Thank you so much for your sacrifices. Father Stiegler, who was one of my favorite teachers at Jesuit, made the trip from the Bay Area. Thank you, Father, for coming. And thank you, Jesuit, for this table. Very honored to have that be a part of it. And Stephen Tamarambucci, who kept me healthy through the years in high school and continues to help the running community here locally. And of course, Walt Lang, and I'll get to you in a second, because we have a lot to cover with our experience. I want to tell one story about that one race that I did take off at 600 meters. But being the youngest of 6 kids, you immediately absorb something maybe that you didn't get until you decided to run. And that's a sense of community right out of the gate. My mom had a daycare at the house, so not only was it 5 of my brothers and sisters, but 25 other kids coming in the house. So a sense of community was not an issue for me. We had a big party every single day I was at the house growing up. And that was a really interesting thing when I had 2 older brothers who were some of the top soccer players on their teams and even in the region. And they were 6 and 8 years older than I was. So kind of like Patty and with running with the boys, I was playing up as well. And I think that really contributed to my development as a young athlete. And one rule they always made for me was, don't cry to mom or you're not going to play with us for a couple of weeks, because that's just not how we're going to roll. And we're going to play at our speed, so when we run over the top of you, you're going to have to just get up and dust yourself off. And that was a gift. It's a very big gift. There's so much molly coddling going on with youth these days and trophies just for smiling. It's kind of fun to see when, yeah, that was a wonderful gift. And years later, when I went to my peer group, I was fairly dominant in soccer because of that experience. There's no doubt about it. I was more prepared. The speed of the game that they were at was far superior than mine. And so fast forward, there was a sense of confidence already with other sports. And I went to Jesuit, and my mom made sacrifices to make that happen. And thank you again for that. As a single mother, that is not easy to do, to have all 6 of her children go through private education at St. Francis and Jesuit. So thank you so much for that, Mom. That's always going to be something that contributed to the success of all of us. But fast forward, and it was interesting when Jesuit, which is a school that likes to promote sort of participating in as many sports as you can, and all this kind of stuff. And I did that, and had significant success in basketball and soccer. So sort of the opposite of some of the runners, where the sense of community that I had with the camaraderie of the guys was harder to walk away from than I think I had anticipated. And I got a letter from the AD at Jesuit, Chris Smart, when I was a junior, going into my junior year, and I just qualified to qualify. You don't use that in basketball. I'm using running terms to talk about basketball. I just made the starting 5 for Jesuit's basketball team, the varsity starting 5 as a point guard, and that was a big deal. We were, going against Crenshaw and state champ kind of caliber team. And I got the letter in the mail about a week later from Chris Smart, the AD, who was pretty much a running fan. I think was an assistant coach of the running team at the time or something. But he had an inside track on what he thought was a promising career. And he said, Michael, in a letter to my mother and I, you guys need to make a family decision, because while you probably could get a scholarship to a school, there's an if, there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts with basketball and soccer, and you're doing well enough to get letters. We understand that. However, you could be an Olympic runner. You could be the fastest kid that we've seen, but in order to do that, you have to actually run. You actually have to run miles and miles and miles and miles, and you have to do cross country. And we think at Jesuit we recommend that you strongly consider running cross country. And it was a big moment for me and my family. My mom and I thought about it, and after sort of analyzing it for a day or two, I walked into Dean Meyer's office, then the head basketball coach at Stanford, who was, Mr. Basketball of California, and he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder. I said, "Coach," he said, "What's up, Michael?" I'm like, "Well, I have some news. Thank you so much for the starting job. I feel like that's an honor on this team, but I'm not going to play basketball. I'm going to run cross country." He was like, "What?" I mean, it was a pretty big shock to him. It was the best decision I ever made. There's no doubt about it. And while I gave up some of the camaraderie that naturally comes with a team sport, I yearned for it in track and field and in cross country. And with the help of Scott Abbott and Charlie Brenneman, two other teammates in the room who were just awesome teammates to have, I would especially like to say thanks to Scott Abbott for being such a supportive teammate. But we built something quite unique. Now, it was on the heels of a huge tradition that Walt had already kicked off since, 1960 or whatever, and whenever you started, but it was 25 years in the making, and now it's 45 years in the making, whatever it is. It was special. We made it more special. I think there are aspects of running, like some of us have already covered, that are so special. The solitary moments along this American River Trail I would never trade. I don't think anybody would ever argue that it's some of the most pristine. Growing up between two rivers is just a special, special place to run. So we need to protect that and use it. And I'm really happy to hear, and Ellen, thank you so much for your leadership and taking this wonderful event on with such fervor. I mean, I didn't expect this at all. I'm very impressed and very blown away that Sacramento's running community is really rocking and rolling, literally. There was a bass guitarist out there and a drummer. I don't know if you guys saw that, but pretty cool stuff that this is such an exciting event, and I'm just honored to be a part of it. Another moment I think that was interesting I was gonna cover, the race that they showed on the screen here, the state championships my junior year. Funny little tidbit was a guy named Brandon Pacheco was a big name in the sport at the time, and he was a rising star. And he ran the 800 meters the night before our final in the 1600 meters. And it was the trials, I think, in the 800 meters. And I think you remember, Walt, he wiped away his competition. And he looked quite scary to me. And I went to bed that night going, "Oh my God, this guy is really hot." And I'm a little bit in fear of his speed. And I was a bit of a speedy athlete, but I was like, how do I make sure that my probability increases of beating this guy? And I just went to bed with this roaming around in my head. And I remember waking up at 5:15 in the morning and knowing that Coach was already up because he wakes up at 4:45 every single day. And I picked up the phone. I was staying with some family in Southern California. He was at the hotel, and I said, "Coach," he says, "Michael, what are you doing up?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go with 600 meters. He says, "What?" I'm going to kick with 600 meters to go." He's like, "Well, okay, that's a long way," but I said, "Do you think that's a good idea?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's a long way, but you're strong enough. You can probably do that. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'll see you at the track. Goodbye." And I hung up the phone and went there, and the whole time during that race, I was jogging, not even thinking about anything other than the moment I hit that spot. Every time I'd go around it, which was only 2.5 times, I guess, I would say, "Okay, here we go. I only have 400 meters to go till I get back to this spot." When I took off, I really wanted to make it an intimidating moment for Brandon Pacheco in particular, and he ended up getting second. So it was a big breakthrough, and obviously I could have run a lot faster based on my penultimate lap there. So anyway, there was a special experience winning that state championship and being from this community. I will also say that the Olympic Games was extremely special, mostly because the qualifying race was here in our hometown, and that was just a really, really special moment. The support from everyone in this room, I have a feeling 99% of you were probably there. And thank you so much. I owe so much for your legitimate concern in that last lap and your cheering. So if you were cheering for me, I'm honored, and thank you so much. I did my best throughout my career. I can honestly say I did my best to represent Sacramento internationally, and ran in 45 countries representing us, and it was just a dream come true, the whole entire experience. And it is, I think it's, as I kind of helped some of the younger athletes and younger kids in Southern California, and some of my own family members, we've had a lot of conversations about development as an athlete and as a person. And I think it's important to recognize that athletes have been telling themselves to do something abnormal, right? These results that we're all after, the results that are up on these walls, are abnormal. It's not normal. That's why we're celebrating it, because it was achieved. But if it's not normal, then what are you doing about it to become abnormal? You need abnormal input in order to get an abnormal output. So I remember very well at Stanford redefining that in 1999, going into the Olympic year, thinking this is a big shot. I've got these awesome teammates. Gabe Jennings pushed me so hard daily in practice. I've got an opportunity here. So what can I do to be abnormal? And made a list of things I could control and things I could not control, and let go of the things. I couldn't control Bernard Lagat or all these Kenyan guys and what they were up to. I knew I could control my diet, which I started researching, and now I happen to be a little bit in that business. And so it basically created I guess a probable scenario, a more probable scenario than if I didn't make those kind of decisions. And I do believe it is a decision, and so life is about probability, and I increase the probability of these results through very specific decisions and sacrifices. And I will say that, once again, just a huge thank you. Thank you, Mom, once again. I love you so much, and your sacrifices are in that video and in my legs and in my heart. And thank you so much. And Walt Lang, keep rocking, man. You deserve a lot. So thank you so much.